appreciate everybody coming together, and I appreciate her taking the time to do this with us, and we're going to figure out as we go what we can do different, what would be more beneficial, what would help more. I would like feedback from all of you on this. See what we can do better, see what topics we could go further into. A lot of this stuff is going to be stuff that you guys already know. Some of you know, some of you don't. Everybody's at different levels of what they know and what they don't, what they do every day and what they don't. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, and she's going to kind of walk us through the survival guide.
First thing you'll come to is, of course, the index, and it'll have just a line of where you can find different information. And if you want to read it all at the very first, you can. It's also set up to where, of course, everything you read, you won't remember. You're just starting, the person's reading this is just starting out and absorbing a lot of information. And so they can also refer back to this, and they can know different guides they can use, such as how to do different things in the trust fund, or if they need to know how to make a requisition and they forgot, they can come back to this guide and see a lot of just handy different things. There's a little welcome letter, in this case, accounts payable. The resources page is something I actually still use quite a bit for the links, especially policy manuals. The manuals include things like account expense codes, which I like because it's smart. If I'm using an expense code, I'll click the little search glass and it just comes up with the name of that account. It doesn't give a description. And so the policy manual actually has a full description of what everything is. And then it has, contracts, a document center where you can access different things. Here's the exact link to that expenditures account codes. And then even a link to the catalog of smart reports and queries. If you think there's probably a better report out there for something you're looking for, you can download the catalog and then just hit Control F to search for the different fields and find what you want. With reconciliation examples. And then this page here is just a snippet of need to know information when someone's first getting started. It's things like, you have to get your bills paid within 30 days. A purchase totaling $5,000 or higher with a single vendor in a given fiscal year does require a prior authorization or a contract. Again, if an amount is over $5,000, they must have an invoice and quote attached to that voucher. Do not use state general funds for SIBF expenses, nor for the benefit of employees. And then separate SIBF and employee use funds are in place for that. And this is something we've dealt with before. Staples is a mandatory vendor. This means all office supplies and other items covered in the contract are required to be purchased from Staples. And on any of these, if you want to know more information about it other than the bullet points, there's often a link to where you can go to the statute and the different policies that this is created off of. And then here are some commonly used abbreviations. The accounts receivable, I think, actually has a more extensive list, so add those to it. There's just a quick AR is accounts receivable, BU stands for budget unit, PO. I know accounts receivable will actually have a DOM is for domiciliary, those sorts of things. It's something someone might not know. And then on this page, it goes over the expenditure account codes. And if someone wants the detailed list, they can click here. Or there's also, after this, I'll show a handy document Erika actually showed us that's super useful for accounts and figuring out what to charge different things to. This is 5,100 is salaries, 5,200 is contractual services, 5,300 is commodities, and then you have capital outlay, grants, claims, and shared revenue. Okay. 5,600 is debt service, 5,700 is non-expense items, And then here's something that I pulled straight from their policy that I thought was pretty helpful. To determine the proper expenditure account for an expenditure transaction, first select the primary classification that best describes the expenditure. Then locate the primary classification in the expenditure account listing below. Review the intermediate classifications within the primary classification and select the specific expenditure account code that best describes the expenditure. And so that's been super helpful for me. Like if I know it's a contractual service, I can just go directly to the 5200s and then look beneath that. And this capital assets was actually added pretty recently, just within the last couple of weeks. And these thresholds just go over what makes an asset into a capital asset. These capital assets have to be recorded within SMOT, and they also have different funding codes. They'll have a different account expenditure. And so maybe you have one item that has two different codes. One's just a normal code, and then one's just that same code with capital after it. And the difference will be based on the threshold. So if you have, I'll just say a chair that's $100, it'll be one. But if you have a chair that's over $5,000, it's now capital underneath that equipment and furnishings. So vehicles, building and improvements, land improvements. And that's something to note. It's not just that $5,000 limit. It's $5,000, $100,000, and $250,000, just depending on what it is. And flow charts, Erika will go more into detail with you on the flow charts, but this is a basic description of the flow charts that we have in that flow chart folder and what they're used for. And they're pretty handy to know, I want to travel. What is the first step we need to go through the last step? Same with P codes. How does that work? And I also use it just for source information. I can go in there and find different documents that I need. And down here, it doesn't have the job aids, but it has them listed. And then the job aids will actually be over in the folder that was within that AP survival guide. It seems like trust fund, how to withdraw money from the trust fund, pay a resident bill from the trust fund, view trust fund transaction history, replenishing the cash box from the trust fund, and run trust fund statements. And then with purchasing, it's similar. All of these under the purchasing can be found at that SMOT training website, which is located here. But then I also have some of them printed off and in that folder. And it's quick things like mandatory vendors, how to create requisitions for staples, how to create a voucher, journal voucher for an interfund, which I've used not too long ago, and how to delete or close vouchers, and then adding business units and current obligations. That one is super handy for wanting to see which POs are still open and for knowing exactly how much you have out there on encumbrances. It's one of them that I will use every single month when I'm creating those financial reports that get sent out. And then how to close a PO manually has come in handy quite a bit in the past as well. And then the other folders within the guide just go through with that detailed. Yeah, that's pretty much. Are there any questions on the survival guide? If there ever are, or even if you don't have a question, if there's something missing from it and you think, hey, that would have been handy if it was there, let me know and I'll get that added to it so that it can be more in depth for future people.
Yeah, and Melissa is also working on and going to continue working on some training videos that she puts on a YouTube channel. So we can always look at what to add there. And if you all have feedback on stuff that would be beneficial, we can do that as well. So I think we're going to go on ahead and move into Erika's portion. If you have questions, just let us know.
So I guess what we'll start with is like pretty much the basics. Melissa's survival guide is going to be very key in, you know, a quick look at what you need, what you guys are going to need to fulfill every part of like the AP portion. If you can't find it there, and I'm going to share my screen, you have everything that you should need at your fingertips. This is what SMART looks like. This is the accounts payable module. It says everything on here. If you go back to the homepage for the SMART training, if you click on that tile, it will take you back to everything. So if for some reason they change a location from where Melissa grabbed like one of those links from and it doesn't open properly, go into your SMART, go to your homepage and hit that training tile. That's going to take you back to where they're all located, because they are actually updating some of them, because I've gone through some of them and some of them have not been updated since they actually did the tiles. And that was back in like 2018, 2019. So everything that you're going to need. Now, as far as like accounts payable, we're not just paying vouchers. We're doing a lot more than just paying vouchers. We're doing requisitions, we're doing contracts, we're doing PAs, we're doing supplier contracts. We're getting W-9s to enter in suppliers. We're actually entering in the suppliers. This is all things that if you're in AP, you should be doing. So if you hit the AP, if you click on here and what you're looking for is not here, go to purchasing. All your requisition stuff is going to be under purchasing. It's pretty much basic. They try to keep it as basic as possible. So if it's a rec, it's under purchasing. If it's AP, then it's going to be under AP. If you have grants to pay, they're going to give you grant information and job aids for that. So everything is here and it's at your fingertips. There's nothing that you should not be able to find. If you cannot find it, then you should hit one of us up. Send me a text or send me a message, send me an email, send me a message on Teams. If you can't find it, we'll find it. If I can't find it, I'll get with Melissa. She'll find it because she's the finder of things. So, but we'll start with recs. We'll start with requisitions, and your requisitions are going to be your first initial process for your requisitions is going to be your approvals. You're going to need to make sure that whoever's requisitioning the services or the supplies, they're going to need to make sure that they've gotten proper authorization to purchase that. Once you've established that information, then from there you can go on and you need to make sure whether or not it is under 5,000 or over 5,000. If it is over 5,000, you need to have a state issued contract, a PA, or a supplier contract in place. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. This has to be done. Along with those, all of the documentation has to be with it when you submit that requisition. You need the quotes. If it is a brand new supplier, they need to fill out all of the documents. There is a sexual harassment form. There is a boycott of Israel form. And they just recently put in a new form, and I'm not sure what it is. I could not find it in my email, and I'll have to go back and find it. But all of that stuff needs to be attached to your requisition when you're doing a new supplier. If you don't, they will kick it back out to us. It will hinder the process of you getting your rec approved, which means they cannot purchase anything. If there's not a PO in the system, they should not be purchasing. They should not be purchasing anything without an approval or a PO in the system. If they come to you and they have already purchased something, they need to be trained on what the policy and procedure is. And our policy and procedure is that they request it from their supervisor, their supervisor approves it, they come to us, we enter it in. And then once the PO is dispatched into the system off of your rec, then they are allowed to purchase their item or purchase the service. D of A does not allow us to have a PO after service. Not following that guideline has gotten us in trouble, and it will continue to get us in trouble. And we're trying to eliminate that. These are just some of the things that you want to make sure that you're following, because it's not their name, it's not the requester's name on it. It's your name, and it's your approver's name on them. So at the end of the day, nobody else gets it from D of A but us. And to eliminate that, then we need to follow the policies and procedures. The second thing is on your POs. The flow charts are going to help you out a lot there. Your POs should be entered in as you're receiving the requests. There should not be, and I say this loosely, when it comes to blanket POs, you should be doing your commodities as they requested. Your commodities should not be a blanket PO. We do have services that are blanket POs. That is like your utilities, your annual IT stuff. Anything that has like a lease should probably be set up at the beginning of the year, because those are expenses that you know for a fact that are going to be coming out of your budget. When we do this and we only take the money out that we need at that time, this gives us a real-time look at our budget. It allows everybody who is working in the budget to know where we stand, what we can spend, what we cannot spend. And this also allows other programs. For me, I have cemeteries, BSRs, enhanced, and central office. This allows them to take a look at their budget, and they can decide whether or not, say, Heidi's going to pay $83,000 for a new excavator, either in the middle of the year or at the end of the year. This allows you to help manage your funding as well. You're going to know what you're spending out of that funding. You're going to know how much you're spending, what you're spending it on. And when you're asked for audit information and stuff, it helps it out. It does help when you're only doing your POs for what you're being asked for. Another reason why we only do commodity POs when we're requested is because they ask for certain things. When I was trained by two different people, and I got the same training from both of them. When you create your vouchers, you need to make sure that your description line can actually tell a person going into it what it looks like, what they purchased, what the funding was for, i.e. the program, and then how you're paying for it. That's what it needs to be. So if an approver needs to go into your invoice and take a look at something, say D of A has kicked it out because we've got a bad code in there, they can go in there and be like, oh, okay, well, it's candy bars, but they have it as IT equipment. Well, come on, IT equipment, candy bars, they don't jive. So now we know we have an issue. But if all you have is supplies in there, but you don't say what kind of supplies, you don't say what it is, there's no way anybody can go through and actually verify that your code is correct or not. So you need to make sure that you do update your voucher lines when you're creating those vouchers. Another thing, another basic, these are all just basic, and as we go through these trainings, this is going to get better, and I promise you. I do much better on a one-on-one. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me, to hit me up or anything like that. I have no problem. When it comes to your POs, most of you already know, for those of you who do it on a regular basis, there should be no negatives in your POs. It causes issues with the system, so they don't want us putting negative balances into they don't want any kind of negative lines into the system. When you voucher, that's where you want to put your credits. If you have an invoice and it has a credit come in with it, you should be vouchering them together. It's cleaner for audit purposes. It's cleaner for those who have to go back and look at it. it makes it easier on everybody. Not to mention, a lot of people don't realize it, but we get charged for every entry that we put into the system. So every voucher, every warrant, every rec, every PO, and then every line that goes into that voucher or whatever, we get charged for that. So you want to be mindful when you're creating multiple POs. You know, if it's not necessary, create one PO for something. You can add additional lines. So those are your basics. That's your basic knowledge on accounts payable. As far as like your contracts, supplier contracts, and PAs and stuff like that. Yes.
So the other thing I wanted to add there that we've kind of talked about this a lot is your POs. So after we ran into some issues a couple of years back with the negative balances in fee funds, the director has put out there and advised that we are only to do quarterly POs. I know that makes things a lot harder because some of those things we know we have to do, but for the most part, you know, the blanket POs and not doing our commodities, that will help with that. And then just until he has lifted that, we're supposed to do quarterly POs to ensure that those funds aren't showing negative. And just as an example, one of the questions that we received from KLRD is why, I won't read it exactly, but basically they were just asking, why are the fee funds at KSH and KVH negative? Why did they end negative in last fiscal year? So now we've got to go through and we've got to try to kind of explain that to her. And she's a pretty new representative that's helping us. So that she's an analyst that will go and she'll talk to the legislators and the people there and kind of tell about our budget and things that have gone on. And so that's one of her questions is why are your POs or why are your fee funds negative for both homes? So that's something that with the quarterly POs that he wants to try to keep that from happening. And I realize a lot of it has to do with funding not being available or the revenues not being available to cover the amount of invoices that we get sometimes, but we've got to find a way to make sure that those are not negative so we don't generate these questions like that. So that's just my piece that I needed to add there.
Okay. Any questions for Crystal or anything? We'll talk a little bit about contracts a little bit more. We do, as far as like contracts go, the state has a good portion of contracts out there. When a requester is requesting to purchase something, we should be using state contractor or contracted vendors. It's easier for us, and it's easier for D of A to pass our invoices through. It just is. If we need to spend X amount of dollars with a particular supplier and we start out low and then we gradually start adding on stuff before we get to that $5,000, we need to make sure that one, they're either going to go in and try and get a state contract or they have a state contract. We get a PA done or we get a supplier contract issued. They are cracking down on the over 5,000 and not having a contract. So when it comes to the contracts, you want to make sure that if your requester comes to you with a contract attached to the PO that they want created, you need to go ahead and follow up and look at that contract. Even though they have looked at it and they're saying it is okay, it is not always okay. We are one of the defenses against bad contracts getting attached. So that's part of our job. We need to go in there, look at those contracts and verify that it's going to cover that service or it's going to cover that product that they're wanting to purchase. If it does not, or it's very, very vague on whether or not it will actually cover it, find out who covers that contract, and just shoot them an email. Shoot them an email and verify with them that we can actually use this contract. Because if not, then it becomes an audit issue and they kick it back to us and we get reported on. I'm not perfect. I haven't checked the IT stuff, and I've had issues. So I'm gonna let you guys know I'm right there. And now I have to go through every contract that is attached. It didn't used to be like that, but because we have new auditors and everything is very specific now, we are going to have to do that. It is imperative that you check those contracts. And again, if you do not understand the language in the contract, or you are not sure because you are not the subject matter expert when it comes to that contract, you're not sure if it covers the product that's being purchased, go ahead and reach out to somebody. Reach out to me, reach out to Melissa, Crystal, or the actual rep who is covering that contract, because we want to do it right the first time versus having to be told by D of A. So with that, when it comes to supplier contracts, we do have the right to set up supplier contracts. However, there are some things that we do have to use state contractors for. Crystal?
So on the contracts, if you have to reach out to, and I've learned this as we've gone through, if you have to reach out to the person that is the administrator for that contract, make sure and copy Todd Herman. And you can write that down on any emails that you send to them. Todd Herman's the manager over there. I'm not sure what his exact title is, but a lot of times when I can't get answers, and we've all had that where we can't get them to answer us, copy him on the email. He's probably not going to reply to you, but what he does do is he does go to the person that has the contract and he says, hey, you need to take care of this. And Bonnie Edwards over there is the one that told me to copy him on all the emails that I send out, just to make sure that they're following up. So that way he has oversight on what's going on. The other thing I wanted to say is in the future, I'm hoping to get some help with this. We did request a procurement officer for our agency, and that so far has been approved by the governor. So now it will move through the rest of the process. And if it passes through the legislature at the beginning of next fiscal year, we should be able to start recruiting for a procurement officer that can help with a lot of these things.
Any questions for Crystal? So as far as like the supplier contracts go, again, we do have the right to decide who we're going to do business with. I find that I have with my cemeteries out in Fort Dodge and Winfield, you guys already know that we have location issues when it comes to service and stuff. We have to go with what's close by. And we can't sometimes always use those state contractors because they don't go out that far or they don't cover that area. So we can set up a supplier contract. If you can get that done, do it. It's beneficial for us. One, they will sometimes lower the rates for us if we do a contract. Two, it covers that over 5,000. So we don't have that issue. And you don't, at that point, you don't have to worry about another PA done. Now, as far as those go with PAs, for those who don't know, it's prior authorization. PAs are required for over 5,000 without a contract. However, though, D of A has the right to kick it back to us and tell us that we need to go out to bid depending on the amount and the necessity. if you have a requester coming in and they are locked by distance, like some of my cemeteries are that way. I encourage you to encourage them to write that PA up stating they are the only ones that can provide that service or those goods within a certain mile radius. If you emphasize that is why we are using them, because they are the only ones that can provide that kind of work or service or goods or anything like that, usually they will go ahead and pass it. But if you put in there, we're using them because they're the cheapest, blah, 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 they're going to kick it back to us for bid. They will do that. Super large ones, and I'm going to guess like anything over 25,000, we do run that risk regardless. We will run that risk of the bid. And at that point, then that's a whole nother ball game. And supervisors and stuff like that will have to get involved. So that'll have to be something that we touch base on later on and do in more depth, especially on a case-to-case basis when somebody actually has that come up. I know that the homes have already had bids go out, but for those who are new, haven't done it before, it's going to be a process, and it's not always pleasant. But everybody here is here to help, so there's no reason why you can't reach out. PAs are pretty much basic, simple. As far as my PAs go, I always have the subject matter expert write it up because I know how to use an excavator. I know how to drive one. I'll put a little gas in it, but I'm not going to tell you how to dig a hole for a grate. I'm not going to tell you any of that. I'm not going to tell you the scope of the work that needs to be done or any of that. That's not my job. My job is to make sure that it gets pushed through the system and into the system so that they can purchase or get their service done. So I have them do that. I look it over. And once that's done, if it does not look like it's going to reach the specifications, I will usually send it back to them and have them rewrite it, or I will rewrite it myself or add stuff if I need to. And I will send it back to them, letting them know that I have made changes. Again, this is part of AP. This is part of our job. This is our job. We are here to back those up who are doing their portion of it. Our job is to make sure that we get the stuff entered so then they can do their jobs. If they have to wait on us, they can't get stuff done, and that means veterans don't get taken care of. And that's not what we're here for. We're here to take care of veterans. So there are times when you're going to have to wait on a PA 2 days, maybe 3-4 days. That's excessive. We're going to email somebody. And once you go into your rec, you should be able to see the approval and who it's routing to, and you can email those people. To a certain extent, if you put something in on a Friday, don't expect it to be approved by Monday or Tuesday. That's just not going to happen. But Friday rolls around and nobody's touched it, nobody's looked at it, nobody's done anything, then you guys need to email somebody. We don't wait. We're not going to wait. I don't wait. We shouldn't have to wait. We're doing our job, and therefore everybody else needs to do their job. We're not going to be forceful. We're not going to be rude, but we are going to be professional and assertive when it comes to certain things like that. I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to the PAs and stuff for my cemeteries, they need it, and they need it now. So you can only keep somebody on ice for so long. That sounds rude, but it's the truth. As far as invoices go for your vouchers, go ahead, Crystal.
Sorry. Hey, I just wanted to ask, sometimes when I know when I'm in there and I'm looking at stuff, sometimes it'll just say, multiple approvers.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way around that? Or at that point in time, would we just reach out to AR3 audit, or what would we do at that point?
There's no way around the multiple approvers, especially on the ones that are super large. If they're under 5,000, then they usually go through the workflow pretty easy. As far as like your recs go, but usually if it's under 5,000, you usually don't need a PA, and it's it'll hit Heidi, she'll approve it, and then it'll go straight for dispatch for a PO. But if it's a large one, then D of A will take a look at it. They do have multiple approvers. Sometimes it'll hit Bonnie and then it'll hit somebody else, or it'll hit somebody else and then it'll hit Bonnie. And if it's been approved by the first person and it's just still been sitting out there and it's sitting out there and it's sitting out there and it's sitting out there, then whoever's next in that line, that's who gets emailed, because that's who we're waiting. So it's pretty much like a pecking order when it comes to it. So whoever it hits, they've already approved it, or nobody's approved it. And if nobody's approved it, then I will email both of them if it's a multiple. If there's like 6 people to approve it on there, that just means that they've got multiple people set up in case the other people are not available to approve it. And I'm not gonna email 6 people. I have seen where there have been 5 approvers on something. And I will email the first 2. If Bonnie's on there, I'm definitely emailing Bonnie. She's one of the longest people in procurement. She's got the most knowledge, and she's usually the one that's most likely to get back with you. So it's kind of like one of those things, you gotta go in there and you gotta look at that approval history and take a look and see who's up next. But if it's been sitting there for days and days and days, we need to make sure that we are following up on it. We can't just enter them and then just be like, oh, okay, well, we're done. We're just going to wait for the PO and it gets approved. Because that's not good service. It's not good service for us, for the rest of the team. And that's what we are. We are a team. We may be different programs. We may be in different areas, but we're all a team and we're all working together. So with that, invoices. If you get an invoice and it does not match with a contract rate, or it does not match with what you were initially asked to enter in, you need to ask questions. You need to pull the contract up. You need to verify that rate. If it is less or more or whatever, you need to go back to that vendor and find out why they're not honoring that rate. It sucks when it's less than what the actual contract says, but there's not much we can do. We have to pay according to what is in the contract. Don't pay an invoice if it's not. If your invoice and if the amount of your invoice and your voucher do not match, don't do that. Just don't. What you're paying in your voucher should match your invoice. If you find that the pricing is incorrect, go back to the supplier, ask them for a new invoice. If they tell you that they cannot do that, that is incorrect. You tell them that by state law, we cannot pay them according to this invoice. We will not pay them, and they will issue us a new invoice. Have I had to do that before? Yes, I have. Don't get rude. Don't get mean with them. Don't get nasty, because they'll just hang up on you. All you need to do is just tell them it's a state statute. We cannot alter an invoice. We will not pay an invoice that is incorrect. They will need to issue a new one. And give them your email address. Usually most people want to get paid. I give them my email address. They email it to me. We get it vouchered and we're done. So it takes a little bit of time, but we know we're doing our job right. If you have again, we're back to the 5,000 and over. If you're vouchering, you need your invoice and your quotes attached. Now, there are some, I have been seeing that they are now enforcing the attach it to a PO versus the voucher. I'm not really sure on that, so we're going to have to look more into that, because I think some people may have gotten the raw end of the stick on that one, because I'm not really sure. In the years that I've been doing this, I've never seen it. I was never trained on it, never said anything about it. So apparently they're going back through the old processes and stuff, and now they're going to go ahead and enforce them. We're going to have to look more into that to verify and make sure which ones they want those on, so then we can go ahead and comply with that, and it'll make our jobs easier. For some of those larger ones, it might just be safer if you just go ahead and attach your quote to your POs, especially the ones that you know for a fact that if you voucher it, you're going to know that you're going to have to attach a quote and an invoice to it, just to be on the safe side. And then that way we've done our due diligence regardless, until we've got it figured out completely. That's my workaround. Everybody does their things different, but that's my workaround because I don't want to be, I don't appreciate the emails from DOA. So, but that's my workaround, is attaching them to the larger ones that I know for a fact that I'm going to have to, attach the invoice and the voucher to eventually. So you guys can, like I said, you guys can do what you feel is right, but it's gonna solve a lot of headaches if we just go that route and just start doing that until we can get it worked out. Already gone over the lines and the descriptions and the vouchers. Suppliers. Part of the AP role is entering in new suppliers. When you get a request for a supplier that is not in the system, you need to ask. They either need to bring you a W-9, or you need to call them and or you need to call the vendor and have them provide a W-9 for you. Before you enter it into the system, you'll go in and you'll verify with that EIN number of theirs that they are not in the system under a different name. There are a lot of suppliers that they could be Bugs Be Gone, and actually they're in there as Bug Stoppers or something like that. But once you pull them up with that EIN number, then it's going to pull up everything that they're under. So you'll want to verify that. But we do need to make sure that we are entering in those supplier IDs, or entering in those new suppliers. It's not hard. There is a training guide on it. The training guide is really easy. It takes you step by step. And I can provide you guys with all of that stuff. I can also, if you guys come across it, I will walk you through it. I'm not going to do it for you. I will walk you through it, because one, we want to make sure that you have access to do it. And two, sometimes it's better when you actually do it yourselves. It's just easier to learn sometimes when you're doing it yourself. 1099 reporting, the majority of them are 1099 reporting. So you need to make sure that you are clicking that. We don't file taxes, but that's how they know that they know that they need to send something out to them is by clicking the 1099 reporting in the supplier when you go to add them. There are forms to, if you have a supplier that has you get an invoice and the remit to address is not listed under that supplier, you'll need to do a TM21. And the forms we'll make sure that we can get you the forms. The forms are fun, and you'll have to do a smart help desk ticket. Let's see if I can pull up one of the forms just to give you guys kind of an idea. For some of you who have already done these, this is just basic. For those of you who have never done a help desk ticket, that will be a training that we'll probably need to have at a later date, but I don't know how many of you have actually done a help desk ticket. Rachel's done one. I know Melissa's done one. B, Susan, have either one of you ever done?
B has several.
B, okay.
Susan, nope.
Crystal will probably need to do a training on that too, because everybody should be able to do their help desk tickets.
I've never done one either, so.
Don't worry, I'll show you. But we are not able, it used to be, the system used to be set up that we could actually go in and add an additional address ourselves. They took that away from us, I think, when they did the update. Now we have to do this, fill out this form, and then send it in to via help desk. Crystal, was there anything else I needed to touch on? I know that there's like 60 million other things I probably need to go over. Oh, I do have one more thing.
Oh.
When you're in the AP module, I don't know if any of you guys get into this, but for those of you who work in this, but the Accounts Payable WorkCenter, this area in here, it takes a minute because it actually loads a lot of information. And it's working, and it's working, and it's working. Basically, what you can see in here is you can see errors. You can see your accounts, your vouchers that are incomplete out there. You can see anything that's been approved or is pending approval. Things that are staged for payments. This actually gives you like a good view of what's going on, especially with the stuff that you may have entered in today, especially if it's something that needs to be like approved, like utilities, or maybe somebody doesn't realize that they need to go in and do interfunds, because for some reason interfunds do not send notifications in. But you can go in and you can look at like incomplete vouchers. You can go in and look at unpaid status. It'll show you the approval status, if it's pending approval. If you have stuff that needs to be matched is usually the ones that you recently entered in, and it hasn't gone through all the way and matched up with your PO. If there is a match exception, it'll show here. At that point, you'll also be able to go in and look and see what the error is. It will tell you what the error is. Like maybe the PO actually hasn't dispatched all the way, or there's just something about the PO that's not matching up with it. There is also for budget check errors. If you have no money in a fund you're paying out of, it'll show up there. I use this a lot. This will tell me what I've got going on. If I've got anything that needs to be worked on, I go out there and I check this on a regular, just to make sure. And then I'll check the unpaid vouchers status to make sure that I don't have anything out there that somehow slipped through the work list and didn't get approved or something like that. Or maybe I didn't send that email to Crystal and Melissa to do my interfunds, sometimes. You can also get to queries this way. This area is just really, really handy. So if you guys haven't had a chance to play around in this, you can. As long as you don't save anything, and this is what I told Melissa, as long as you don't save anything, if you go in and you look around at Smart, as long as you don't save anything, you're fine. If you're looking for stuff, if you're wanting to see if there's certain things in there, you can. As long as you don't save it, you're fine. But you can run all kinds of reports off of here instead of having to go and locate your query and stuff like that. But like I said, it's very handy. It's very handy. Melissa did talk about the current obligations and how she uses that on a regular basis. That is part of your end of month checklist. We do have an end of month checklist in Accounts Payable, which towards the end of the month you should be running, and it lets you know what you've got open, what you what needs to be closed, what you probably should be closing. It's something that we should be doing on a regular basis. And you can find, and like I said, the tiles, if you go in and you actually look at the tiles, you're going to see everything. You're going to see everything that you need. There's nothing that everything that you need should be at your fingertips. If it is not in the smart system, then go out to procurement and go out to the Department of Administration's website. You can find a lot of stuff out there. If you can't find it, then again, let us know, and one of us might actually have it. But that checklist, there is a checklist, and it's listed in that survival guide. That should be followed on a regular basis. Reconciling your P cards, that should be done on a regular basis as well. Most of you already know that. For those who don't know about P cards are our purchasing cards. They're the cards that we use through UMB Bank to purchase items. There are a couple of vendors out there that will not allow us to do POs, so we have to pay on the spot. So we'll use our P cards. I am the person who is in charge of that. I'm the coordinator for the P cards. Not really sure why they gave me that responsibility. They should have picked an adult. If you have questions regarding your P cards, if you need to set up a new P card, I would be the one that you would need to email. There are certain things that we can and cannot do. P cards they do require a PO. It did not used to be like that, but it is now, because we were not able to track the expenses. We weren't able to track the expenses in real time without the POs. When the cards are charged, they're charged, but those charges do not come out of the system or anything until they're actually vouchered. So we could have $15,000 worth of charges sitting out there for one program and not know about it without these POs. Yeah, they would have requisition, they would have requested it from their supervisor would have approved it, and then they would have gone and used their P card. But we were finding that we did not have an accurate and real-time view of our budget. So we implemented that POs, even though the state does not require it, we basically require it. It gives us a real time. It lets us know exactly how much we have out there. Also, sometimes those cards will get used to purchase IT stuff. I had an instance where Manoj had purchased some licenses, and he did not read the fine print. It put it on an auto renew. There are some things that we can do in auto renew, but that is not one of the things that we wanted to, because they ended up changing vendors. So I had to go back out and fight them for it. If there is a dispute on your P card that you're reconciling, we do not dispute it with UMB. We dispute it with the actual vendor. UMB must be paid. That's just the way it is. So you'll go ahead and reconcile those. To reconcile those, you have to have the receipts. You need to have any and all documentation with that from the beginning, middle, and end of the purchase. If you do not, the person in charge of that, the person holding that card needs to find it for you. If they do not have it, they have lost it, they need to write up something. They actually need to write up the date that they used it, the amount that they spent it, and the vendor that they used it at. And then they need to sign it. I had an instance, and I had Eric wrote one up for me. He had no problem with it. And he's the deputy director. So if he doesn't have a problem with it, I don't see how anybody else can have an issue with it. But we do need to make sure that we are getting proper documentation for those P cards. It's a must. If, like I said, if you guys have any issues or you have questions with those, I mean, I'm here to answer those questions. It's not a problem. think I touched on. Um, I didn't go as far into the actual how you're going to enter these things in, because some of you guys already know how to do it. Some of you guys, to learn how to do it it would take much more than this, and it would just probably be very complicated and probably a waste of your guys' time. When it is time to actually do an in-depth training on this, then we will go through this, and anybody who wants to sit in on that can do so. But we will end up having a training like that if Crystal says we can. So I don't know, she's kind of mean though, but we'll see. Do you need me to touch on anything else, Crystal?
Well, right here, I just want to say that a couple things that we came across recently is we were asked by a supplier to put a credit card on file. That is not something that we typically do. If you're ever asked to do that, I think we have to actually have permission from D of A to do so. So we would have to address that further at that time. With the account codes, that we are getting quite a few returned right now. If you don't know what account code to use, please reach out to D of A to ask them. If nothing else, we can always reach out to AR pre-audit and ask for information or how we handle a situation, and then they'll tell us, whether if they know or who to go to or whatnot. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. So I know that we went over a whole lot of things. And I wanted to ask, oh, I cannot get away from the sun, sorry. So I wanted to ask, is there anything that we covered that you have questions on? Please ask questions if you have them, just because if you have it, somebody else might have it as well. Something that we could elaborate on, or something that's a little bit not clear. Let's start there, and then I think we're going to walk through the flow charts, some of the flow charts that Melissa put together, because there are some great resources in there, and there's more to come on a lot of those things. I did also want to note that Melissa is going to record a help desk ticket training and put that upload that to the YouTube, and then I'll have her go on ahead and make sure that she sends out. I know that you probably have before, but maybe send it to everybody that's in this group to include everyone so they can find your training more easily. If you could do that. And then we might go on ahead, and then the account code query that Erika showed us, I might have her or Melissa do kind of a training on that as well, because I think that's very beneficial, especially now with the amount of scrutiny that our agency is under for different reasons. I feel like there's a lot of questions out there, and I just want to elaborate on that a little bit. So we have a new secretary of the Department of Administration, and I feel like since he's come on board, he's kind of trying to maybe follow some of the policies that went to the wayside in the past with other leaders, because I feel like he's also doing that with accounts and or with the contracts as well. So some of the things that we were able to do, anytime there's a shift in leadership, you have that. So when Richard Beatty came on, he was the I think he was kind of Todd Herman's position. He was no PAs. We're not allowing any PAs. You have to have a contract or a supplier, whatever. So, and then he's gone now. And so I think things kind of shift as new leaders come in. And I think that's why a lot of the things that we've done in the past, or codes that we've used in the past or whatever, is being called on, because they're kind of being pushed to be more thorough with those things as well. So, and if there's any type of training that you feel would be beneficial to do more in depth, please please reach out with that. I'm getting ready to go on ahead and send out the test questions. And then I did say if you have any feedback or any anything that you'd like to add to that, just go on ahead and add that. And then again, you don't send those back to everybody in the group, just send them back to me. And then I'm not sure if Melissa's going to walk you through the flow charts or if Eric is going to, whichever's fine. And then, because I think those are valuable tools for us to have as well.
I'll just share my whole screen with you that way as we go. The flowcharts are actually just part of the survival guide. When you open up that folder, they'll be just right here. And we'll be adding flowcharts to it as we create them. And then the numbers are just so that they're in the same order as what they're listed as. I'm going to lower this. Right here, the vector check process through the P code. It's just so that they line up in order. And this is actually one that Smoke generated that is the people from Smoke generated. And it's super handy. It just explains the process of what goes on when you start out with the requisition and how it goes through the requester. You have the save and submit, the approvers, requisition, is it approved? And that budget checking, it's an hourly batch. It goes through the purchase order, and then the buyer. And of course, the budget checking again. It goes down to PO change order. It just goes through that whole process. The vendor. Then you go down to the voucher, budget checking again, matches the budget process, batch, and then vouchers again until it ends up in our work list, and we approve it, and then it gets the check from set off. And then down here, they have just handy pieces of information about asset management, project costing information, and then explaining what set off is, and having some handy websites and even a phone number to call if you have questions about set off. Those sorts of things. It's just an overview of everything that happens from the time you enter a requisition to the time the vendor gets paid. And then this is another one that the people at Smoke created, that it starts off with just simple basic questions on, is it a purchase for $5,000 or more? If no, is the item on state contract? No. Is spend to supply of $5,000 or more in current fiscal year? If yes, then you need to contact the Office of Procurement. If no, then you just create the requisition. If it is over $5,000, is the item on state contract? If yes, you go ahead and enter the purchase requisition. If no, is it a KSA 753739 prior authorization? If no, then you need to do a bid event. If yes, then you enter the purchase requisition and complete a PA for it. And then, of course, they have contact information down here with phone numbers that you can use to call the procurement offices. So that's handy. And this is one we created. It is general purchases within the agency that are under $5,000. And it has a couple statutes up here just saying, any person or officer authorized to purchase materials and supplies for a state agency operating in Kansas shall purchase from the state use catalog at any time when the listings in the catalog will meet the needs of the agency or school district. And that specific comes into play with things like Granger and Staples. We do a lot of purchases from them. Oh, it's not this one. These are other. This just takes you through the steps of, if you want an item, the requester completes and submits the purchase request form. Maybe I need to drag that down further. obtained from the business offices. And then the head of each facility will review the expense and send the signed form to the business office for processing. Accounts payable, or in some cases, Vicky, the admin assistant, will check with the mandatory contractors to see if the item or service is available from a state contract. And then we have a separate job aid that talks about how to find those state mandatory contracts. And then that same person creates a requisition in the e-procurement module. And we have links to job aids about entering requisitions and that requisition training guide. And then it goes to, if the item or service is in the state catalog, the accounts payable or admin assistant may place orders by contacting the vendor directly using their individual sites, or can refer back to the Kansas State Use website. If the service is included in a state contract but not within the catalog, the supervisor or employee must make the purchase from the contracted supplier. And then the last one that will go on is, if the item or service is not included in a mandatory contract and will not total over $5,000 by the end of the fiscal year, the supervisor or employee may proceed with the purchase. And that's when it goes through the approvers and you create the requisition. And then the budget checking. And then the receiver, upon receipt of the items, the receiver will check the order against the packing slip and send the packing slip to the accounts payable. The accounts payable will create a voucher, and then the budget process runs, and then the voucher will appear on the approver's list, and we submit the payment to the vendor. And then the second page just has a glossary explaining who an approver is, the buyer, fiscal staff, receiver, requester, and then sources where you can find all of this information and job aids on how to complete it. And if there are ever any questions, feel free to let me know. Wait, no, just did that one. And this is for staples, since it's handled a little differently than the others. It's the same as it has to be a supervisor approved request, but then the accounts payable will request the items directly from Staples via Smote, and there's a job aid to do so. Then the approver will review the requisition and approve. Then it goes to the buyer. And then from there, the receiver will do the same as what was mentioned before, as far as they'll check the items against the packing slip and send the packing slip to the accounts payable or admin assistant. And the accounts payable will create a voucher. And then once the voucher appears on our work list, we'll approve it. And a check will get sent to, well, check or just payment will get sent to Staples. And again, we have a glossary down here and just a few sources here, such as purchasing job aids, the Prompt Payment Act, and the rec to check process within Smote. Here's a flowchart on how to request the P code. So that if you have a new employee, this is what you will use to actually get a P code within their possession. Business manager will create a written request to the agency P code coordinator with the employee's name and justification for the code. Upon approval from the P code coordinator, the business manager will fill out the procurement code holder agreement. The P code coordinator or CFO will conduct the initial training with the code holder. Training will include a review of the State Purchase Code General Procedures Guide and this IMPP. And then the code holder will then sign the agreement, and it will be approved by both the business manager and the superintendent. And the completed form will then be sent to the agency P code coordinator for issuance of the code via the UMB website. And the P code coordinator will create the code holder profile within Smote. And then there's instructions on how to do so. And again, we have sources down below with the P code training and a glossary. And then the last but not least is how to actually use that P code to make purchases. like most purchases, it starts with approval from their supervisor. And then it has the guidelines and policies that can be read along with the smart training guide. And then the code holder needs to make sure that we don't have taxes on the purchases. And we have a statute here that they can use for proof. The code holder must save itemized receipts for all transactions until the receipts can be given to the business office. And upon returning to the business office, the code holder must complete the P-code transaction log maintained by each business office. All receipts, approvals, returns, and any other documentation related to the purchase must be turned into the business office. And then the last step is reconciling all of the purchases with the statements that come out each month. And then down here again, we have the sources that we use to create the flowchart along with the glossary. We'll be having more flowcharts come out, and I'll send out notices as we add them. And as we do, I'll just put them directly in this folder. Yeah, that's it. Are there any questions on any of those?
Okay, and if there's ever anything that you guys can't find, you can reach out and ask, and we can help you, like what Erika was saying earlier. I really would like to see if anybody has any questions or any kind of feedback so far of what we've gone through, anything that we need to go through more thoroughly, or your thoughts on this as well.
Oh, just so you guys know, on the P-card reconciliations, they are due the same as the invoices. We have 30 days in which to pay them. I know that the statements say like they're due on the 15th or whatever, but according to what Tim Hunt has said, we have like till the 25th or whatever, so it's technically we still have like the 30 days to get those reconciled, just for those of you who are reconciling them. But I would suggest that if you guys can't get them done sooner, just because they start emailing us the closer we get, and if they go over. So
if you have feedback, please add it to that email that I sent. I that way we can adjust the training. Yeah, I just we'll be following up with some, like I had said earlier, some individualized training based off of some of the issues that we're seeing across all parts of the agency. Again, like I said, Melissa will do some of the videos that will help, that you can always refer to. We will also look at having some our budget process. I don't have a formalized training for that, but I was going to work on that as well, because I know some people have expressed some interest or not, and I'm not saying everybody in here will, but some might kind of like to know what the process looks like and what we go through. So we will work on that as well. I don't know, Melissa, Erika, do you guys have anything at all to add?
No, nothing that comes to mind. If I do, I'll send out an email with it. Nothing's coming to mind right now.
Just that if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. If you don't know how to do something, I'm an email away, text on Teams or whatever. I'm really friendly. I really am, guys. I really am.
She taught me everything I know about accounts payable.
Regardless of what Crystal and Melissa say about me, I'm really nice.
So I guess, like I said, fill out the answers. Try to have those to me this week if you can at all. And then that way, because I know the director and I talked, he actually called me last night and we talked for a little bit. and I let him know that we were doing this training today. So, I mean, but I've had his input the whole time. So, yeah, thank you for your time. I appreciate you joining us. Erika, Melissa, thank you for presenting the bulk of the information. It's greatly appreciated. And I hope you guys have a great week and stay warm.